Joining me now is Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who is no stranger to these speeches, but this will be the first time he will attend as the Republican leader. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to see you again in person.
Thanks, Dan.
I do want to start with Ukraine. The president hasn't always sort of stuck to the facts and the history, but you have consistently that Russia was the aggressor that started this war. What do you think the president's announcement that they're going to withhold, that the U.S. will withhold military aid to Ukraine will do? Does it not just help Russia?
Well, I mean, I think at this point, it's a pause, it's not a stop. And I think it's designed to get the players to the table. It's unfortunate the way things went down last week, but I think they have a chance here. There's a deal out there. And I think what everybody wants to see at the end of the day is a peaceful resolution there. And I think President Zelensky, through some of his communications today, is suggesting that he's ready to do that.
So this is a strategy?
I think it's part of the broader, the president and his team have tried to change the conversation around this, and I'm hoping that it'll lead to a successful outcome in the end. That's what we want to achieve.
Last week, the U.S. joined with Russia, North Korea, and Belarus to vote against a UN resolution which condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine. If you combine that with the eruption in the Oval Office last week, I've had a lot of people ask me, and I've seen a lot of writing around this fundamental question, and I want to know what you think about this. Is it still the U.S. policy to stand up for democracies around the world?
Well, I think it's always America's policy to support in democracies. Now, what that level of support entails is an open question. And I think what President Trump has tried to achieve, at least with respect to Ukraine, is to get the European nations more engaged in terms of providing the security there. The United States obviously has invested heavily in that region. But my view is whether we like it or not, it's a dangerous world. And you do have bad actors out there. You got the Russians and the Chinese, the North Koreans, and the Iranians all working together in an unholy alliance. And I think people look to the U.S. as the leader when it comes to freedom and democracy, and we want to support that. And I think we have very extensively invested heavily in Ukraine. I don't think there's probably the political support for continued financial investment there, but if the European nations can step up, and with American support in terms of training and intelligence sharing and all the things that we can provide and offer, we still have to be the deterrent to bad behavior. And other countries look to us for that leadership role.
And you're confident that that is still going to be the U.S. role going forward in the next 4 years?
That's my view. I mean, obviously, every administration has a different view when they come into office. But I think that there's no alternative. I think the alternative, frankly,
well, the alternative is America first.
Well, the alternative, I think, you don't want America to become isolationist. Now, again, what form America's involvement and support takes is a matter of debate. And, we can talk about whether soft power, hard power, what components that ultimately entails. But I think in the end, people look to us to be a leader, and we have to provide that leadership.
Tariffs.
Yes.
The president did announce these new tariffs, 25% on all goods imported from Canada and Mexico. It will really, I don't need to tell you, it's going to really impact not just states across the country, but especially your state of South Dakota. In 2023, 40% of your state's imported goods came from Canada. 44% of South Dakota exports went to Canada. So what's your message to your constituents who could quite literally pay a heavy price?
Well, they are our two largest trading partners. There's no way around that. And that's frankly what the USMCA was all about. The U.S. and Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement was to create basically a North America free trade zone. And I'm very supportive of that. I think what the president's trying to achieve here, in my view at least, is a result and an outcome that addresses a concern that the American people have had about open borders, both northern and southern, and the fentanyl traffic that's coming into this country and what it's doing to American citizens. We have literally 100,000 deaths a year. If you look at almost twice the number of deaths in this country related to fentanyl as we saw in the entire Vietnam War. And so I think the president is looking at this as a means to an end. I don't think it's the end itself. I certainly hope it isn't. And I hope more importantly, though, that this administration, unlike the past one, will look at opening up more trade deals. There's conversations around a deal with the UK. That was something I've been advocating for a long time. We didn't have a single free trade agreement signed in the entire 4 years of the Biden administration. And I believe this administration is going to be a lot more aggressive in trying to open markets The tariff policy, again, I see that through a different lens.
Well, that's
because
what I
of
was
where
going to
come
ask
from.
you. I mean, the stock market is already going down. So that's Wall Street's answer to it. Hasn't even hit Main Street yet, which I know matters most to
Right.
people like you who represent average Americans. Do you think this is good policy?
Well, I don't, again, I think this is a president who has used that authority in ways that have gotten outcomes and results. And it's already been stayed once. It's going into effect, we understand now. And the markets are reacting to that. I think the markets in time will stabilize a little bit around this when it becomes more clear what the
What
long-term
about people's
objective is.
pocketbooks? I mean,
Well, I mean, I
prices
think
are
that-
already sky high.
Yeah, and I think that's an issue in my view. I mean, I think you have to think about the economic impacts through inflation. I think you have to look at growth in the economy and how that's impacted by all this. Those are real issues, and so the administration is going to have to take, in my view, as they evaluate some of these policy decisions, the macroeconomic impacts of these. And none of these things happen in a vacuum, obviously. But I do think the president has been very specific. He is somebody who believes in peace through strength and is trying to assert American strength on the global stage, and more immediately in our relationships with our northern and southern neighbors who, frankly, again, have let their borders get completely out of control, which has led to not only the fentanyl deaths, but all kinds of other bad social and economic problems in this country.
I want to ask about Elon Musk. Our understanding is that he's going to be at the speech tonight. The president plans to highlight him and his work. No one argues that there isn't waste, fraud, and abuse, probably more extensive than anybody knows in the government. But you've seen these cuts. They've been pretty chaotic on a whole host of issues. They fired people and they realized that they were the wrong people, and in areas that aren't just about soft power, but are also about like the national security of America. Are you comfortable with how he is going about business, he being Elon Musk?
I think that he's kind of going about business as he would in a private business, and obviously there are nuances in dealing with the federal government that are probably different than what he's accustomed to in the private world. But I do think he's bringing, a view of this that a lot of people around this country welcome. And that is, most of at least the people in our supporters, a lot of our supporters across the country, believe in a limited but effective federal government, not a bloated bureaucracy. And I think what he is trying to achieve is to try and figure out ways that we can make government cost less, run more efficiently, modernize it with technology. And I think the objectives are right. How they go about it matters, as you point out.
And are they going about it right?
Well, I mean, frankly, what I would do, I think the Doge is going about this and doing the big scrub, but now that you've got, and this is why we work so hard to get cabinet people in place, is hand it off to these leaders, these managers, who are going to be making decisions, and they're going to be, I think, probably better attuned.
Do you feel that,
to the individual
is he going to
programs.
do that? Have you met with him, and do you intend to meet with him to make that suggestion?
Well, I have met with him. I haven't met with him recently, but I expect to here in the near future. And I think that's a conversation that we'll have. And I think that, obviously, as I said, the overall goals and objectives are the right ones. And I think he brings an eye to this that probably, you couldn't have gotten just by having sort of the Congress or somebody else do it. I think having somebody who has created jobs, changed and transformed businesses in the real world is a useful perspective and a scrub of our federal government that we haven't seen in a long time and frankly was overdue. So I am hopeful it yields the right result, but anytime you do this, it's, you also have to pay attention to the aftermath of that and how it impacts people. I mean, these are real people and they need to be treated that way.
This is the first time I've interviewed you since you've become the Senate Majority Leader. Mitch McConnell was leader for 17 years, I think the longest in history.
Right.
How is your approach different? And how have we seen that even so far?
Well, I mean, obviously, Senator McConnell left big shoes to fill. He had a tenure there, the longest ever for any leader in the Senate, and a style and a way of doing things. I have a different style, different way of doing things. What we've tried to do, Dana, is I'm very consensus-based, collaborative, try and unleash the potential and the talent that we have in our Senate, Republican senators, and take advantage of the process where we get back to more of a regular order, where the committees are functioning and working, where individual senators have opportunities to get votes on bills, both at the committee level and on the floor. and to get some order and discipline brought back. The last 4 years under the Democrats, it was just kind of, in my view, chaotic. And I'm somebody who sees the world in a way that the United States Senate, although its rules make it very different and unusual relative to any other body like it in the world, you still have to have, you've got to be respectful of people's time, maximize their ability to give voice to and represent the people in their individual states. And we're trying to empower individual senators in that way. And I hope that in the end it's successful. We have some hard things to do. And in the Senate, as you know, it takes 60 votes to do almost anything consequential, which means you've got to have some bipartisanship. And I hope we can see some of that. We live in a very polarized time. And just in the time I've been in politics, that's changed a lot. Trying to get people to come to the middle to find common ground is extraordinarily hard.
Mr. Leader, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks,
see you
Dana.
at the
Nice to be
Capitol
with
later.
you. Yeah,
Thank you.
sounds good.